咁多位我哋會議嘅委員、政府部門嘅代表，大家早晨。我哋已經係夠我哋法定嘅人數啦。咁我宣布咧，會議正式開始啦。好，今日會議咧就係我哋聽一聽團體同埋個人嘅一啲意見。今次嘅會議咧共有54個團體同埋個別人士咧係出席發表意見嘅。名單咧已經放咗喺附錄1咧，俾各位委員參。
There are 54 deputations and individuals coming to give their views, and the list is tabled for your reference, members. And as at the 23rd of June, we have received 18 deputations and individuals who are attending the hearing, and 6 written submissions from those who are not attending. As for those who have not yet submitted your written submissions, please pass them to the Secretariat after the meeting. Now, as for the hearing today, we will first invite members of the public to give their views, and then we invite the administration to give a consolidated reply. After that, members will give their views, and we'll then invite the administration to respond to members' views. Now, for everyone attending here, you will each have 3 minutes to speak. We have a timer in the conference room, and there will be a beeping sound at the end of 3 minutes to remind you that your speaking time is up. And please use the microphone in front of you as you speak. The mic will be turned on for you, and it's your turn to speak. And if you wish, you could put on the earpiece. Channel 0 is 4, Channel 1 is Cantonese, Channel 2 is English, and Channel 3 is Putonghua. If I may remind all of you here giving your views as members of the public, well, as you make your submissions, and also for your written submissions, they are not protected by the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. I would also like to remind you to take note of the notes for members of the public attending meetings in conference rooms or observing meetings in public galleries in the Legislative Council complex. And the notes are tabled before you. As for those in public area, you could ask for a copy of the notes from the staff. And please note that you have to observe order. During the meeting, you must not display any signs, banners, or slogans. And please do not make noise or shout slogans. So please refer to the notes for the information. Well, first I will invite Mr. Ho Kai-ming, Undersecretary for Labour and Welfare, to take us through paper number CB bracket 2535/2/2023 bracket 606. Mr. Ho, please. Thank you. Well, good morning to all of you. The government takes takes seriously the measures to assist persons, carers who for elderly persons and so on. Now, we are going to have an additional $527.5 million starting from October this year to regularize for 4 financial assistance schemes. That is the pilot scheme on living allowance for carers, elderly, and then for persons with disabilities, the amount will be increased from $2,400 to $3,000. As for special care subsidy, that will be increased from $2,000 to $5,000, and monthly allowance for the pilot scheme for hiring carers will be increased to $5,000. There will also be a one-stop information gateway to be that will be developed, and then it will provide various important functions, and the site will be launched at the end of the year. There will also be a 24-hour designated carer hotline. It will be manned by professional social workers to provide instant consultation and counseling, outreaching, emergency response and referral services. This hotline will come into operation from in the 3rd quarter of this year. And then there will also be respite services, and then that the network will cover information on respite services for different districts. And there is also there will also be transportation allowance for those who need the respite services to reach their destination. And then we will be providing $15 million for a territory-wide publicity campaign. This will help the community to better understand the needs of carers and provide a carer-friendly environment for them. And then the SWT will also co-host public activities together with relevant NGOs so that we could provide suitable community services to support aging in place for elderly persons. And then the project will also be expanded for 3 years to cover persons with disabilities. This is a project called a Support for Carers project. And then this will allow information on welfare services in the community to be accessible by those in need. And then we're also exploring providing additional support to carers of elderly and persons with disabilities by the care teams. We welcome views from you on how we could further enhance our support for carers. Thank you. Anything else? No, thank you. Okay, so we heard the administration's response. Now we will listen to the views of deputations and individuals. We'll go by the order of you signing up for the public hearing. Please remember you have 3 minutes each, and please speak into the microphone. First, Ms. Liu from the People's Service Center SEN Concern Group. Good morning. I'm the mother of 2 children. I'm a single parent. Well, the older daughter is 6.5. The younger daughter is 5 years old this month. They both have special needs. The older sister has ADHD, and the younger daughter, my younger daughter, has serious autism. Now she is so energetic, she doesn't sleep. Even last night she did not sleep at all. She just kept making noise. Well, she was like that when she was a baby. So I'm really having a hard time. I'm so tired, but no one can help me. When she was 3, I took her to the mother-child health center, health clinic, to wait list for early education. Eventually, the center was the early training center could help me, and the nurses observed that I had problems, and she advised that I should go and see a psychiatrist. And I was so scared. I shouldn't have any mental illness because I'm a mother. I need to take care of 2 children. But then one day she was crying so much, 12 a.m., 1 a.m., I just couldn't take it anymore. I live in a subdivided unit, and then the neighbors complained that we're making so much noise, and they complained that I didn't know how to take care of my child, and I shouldn't have given birth to her in the first place. And at the time, so much there was a voice in my mind. I was having such a hard time, and there was a voice telling me to end it all, and I was really scared. And it was she was 3 years old, and there was a voice that told me to stop her from making any noise. So I almost put a pillow on her head. But then my older daughter just pushed me away, and I was so tired. I didn't have much strength, and so eventually I sought medical help. I told the early training center, please take me to see a psychiatrist, a private practitioner, because there's a long wait for the government service. And in August, I went to the Princess Margaret. I started waiting for service at the Princess Margaret Hospital. It was many years ago, and only this July I would get a slot. And I could hear voices in my head, and I'm really struggling, and I find myself dangerous even. I hope the government could give more support to us carers. Maybe you could give us healthcare vouchers. And for those who are waitlisting for government services, at least they could turn to private healthcare service for the time being. I'm so grateful that Mr. and Mrs. Wong were so helpful. Otherwise, all three of us wouldn't be here anymore. But then the wait for government services is so long. Please give us more support, carers. And also more support for children with autism and ADHD. And because she didn't sleep all night, at 11 p.m. she slept for 2 hours, and now she's so full of energy. I'm really worried that I would just pass out here because I'm so tired. I'm also taking medicine, tranquilizer, and so on, because without the sleeping pills, otherwise I couldn't sleep. So thank you so much. Please give us more support. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Liu. Yes, I know there are many groups and organizations that care so much for carers, and they probably are watching this live webcast. I'd like to make an appeal here. This hearing this morning is really for us to help carers, and there are members here listening to your views, so please rest assured we will certainly fight for more support for you. And if you don't feel well and you feel depressed, please seek help from social workers and those around you, and even members are all prepared to help you. So there are always more solutions than problems, so please do seek help if you need it. Next, Ms. Lam Key from the Pupil Service Center. Yes, good morning. I'm Key. I'm a social worker. I would like to thank the chairman to finally arrange for 2 spots for the mother, so her children could come with her after many phone calls and emails. Now, if you say that they cannot observe order, well, you just need to make some measures, and we could help them to sit still or to come along with their parents. So next time, I hope there will be certain carer-friendly measures. Now, I'd like to come to the points I'd like to make. We hope that there will be after-school care services for children. As you know, there are very few places at the moment. There's a dire need to increase places, and also we also need small class teaching. Then for us to handle SEN children, because now we have big classes, and then for SEN children, they won't be able to finish their homework. If you've come into contact with SEN children, they need a special individual support. So it's not just about increasing the service capacity, it's also about enhancing the quality of service. A second point, as Ms. Liu pointed out, there are some SEN children who are very energetic at night or even during the day, and at night they don't sleep so well. So for carers, after they take medication, if they have any mental issues, then they become very tired, but then there is no support for them. For example, like the 24-hour residential respite services, there's a long wait and there are few places. So can you increase the number of places for residential respite services so children could spend a day or 2 there, and then there could be some respite for the mother? Because you can imagine it was just 3 minutes and she had to fight so hard before there's could be some peace, and imagine she's in that state 24 hours a day. So please increase the number of residential respite service places for emergency, and there are not enough other healthcare services or private early training sessions. Private training is very expensive. It's $800, $900 per session. I know schools are putting in much resources with Senko and so on, but could there be resources to other NGOs? For example, she mentioned this early training center. And maybe it's not just schools that provide the service. There may be other NGOs that provide services too. So if there could be some sort of a service vouchers, they don't need to wait for services in schools or for public hospitals. They could use the vouchers and go to different NGOs. Last point, the mother also pointed out that she is under immense pressure and stress. So could there be mental assessment regularly for carers? because right now there is no such a regular mental assessment for carers. Usually it's postnatal depression, and at the mother and child's clinic there is just some short questionnaire for mothers to fill out, and there be mental assessment for carers so that any problems could be identified early. Next, Ms. Huang Lok-Yung from Hong Kong Women Workers Association. Yes, I'm from the Hong Kong Women Workers Association. We are particularly concerned about unpaid carers and women with low income. Now, originally I was going to put up the thoughts of these women on plaque and show it to you, but then LESCO refuses any wouldn't allow us to put up such banners or placards, although we've already prepared the banners, and so carers feel disappointed. Anyway, we just want to make 2 points about carers. First one, now for double income carer support. Double income means one job or double job. Carers, one is that they homemaker at home, and then with whatever time they have left, they may take up some part-time work from time to time, and we're talking about this group of carers. Now, we did a survey in 2021 on the situation of carers. In that report, we interviewed 240 carers. More than 80% of them either did or are doing part-time work, but then they are also homemakers and carers, so it's not possible for them to join the labor market on a full-time basis. They could only take up casual work from time to time, and of course casual workers are not protected by the relevant legislation. They don't enjoy many of the conditions of service. So at home already they're not paid for doing housework and caring for family members, and then when they take up casual work, they don't get any protection either. So they lose out both ways. So hopefully there will be better labor protection for casual workers. I hope the Labor and Welfare Bureau wouldn't think that this labor protection has nothing to do with such carers, because that's what they need the most. Actually, many groups have made this point. For stress, usually it's either because of the financial hardship or because of the heavy workload. So this is very much relevant to carers, so don't just ignore that. Second point, there are many carers who put in great effort caring for the families and their work, but they don't get any support in the labor market. And there are welfare organizations that will provide service for encouraging carers to take part in community economy. This is the T-shirt I wear, and these bags, they are all handmade by women. So there could be some sort of economic activity that allows women to work during their free time. Perhaps this is the kind of project that you can promote. We're not just asking for money from you, we're just asking that you give them more choices. Thank you. Next, Elderly Rights Association, Ms. Chiang Yao. I'm a carer. I'm 77 years old. I take care of a mother who's 96 years old. My mother has various illnesses, hypertension, musculoskeletal pains, and so on. So I'm really struggling to take care of her, but she's my mother. So even though I'm having a hard time, I'm trying my best to take care of her till she passes away. I want to spend time with her for a few more years. So it doesn't matter how tough it is for me. I am more than willing to take care of her. But as I take care of her, I encounter many problems. I have a really tough time. Now she has asthma, and there may be episodes during the night. And even if I take her to the hospital, there may not be someone to take care of her in the hospital all the time. And when I sleep, I always try to stay a bit awake because I need to watch my mother's condition very carefully. And then as long as she doesn't breathe properly, I would immediately get up. I will try to sit her up, give her medication, and so her so that she will calm down again. Now, I'm having a tough time, but then I still don't want to see her go. So even though it's so tough for me, I'm prepared to take care of her. But really, I'm very, very tired. And then I have to take her to see doctors, and if there's rain, and then I have to take a taxi. So it's a heavy burden on me. I couldn't even afford taxi fares. And then the threshold for support for carers is so high, so I can't apply for any allowance. So I'm just working 24 hours a day taking care of my mother. I'm not paid at all for my effort. So I hope the government will note the difficulties of carers and our fatigue. Please give us some pay and lower the threshold for allowances, so we carers feel cared for at least. Now, we are senior citizens and we take care of senior citizens. Please give us dignity. Don't make life so tough for us in our twilight years. Thank you.
跟住下一位。
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Lee Woon-hong from the Elderly Rights League Hong Kong. Undersecretary, good morning. Chairman, good morning. Members of the LegCo and fellow carers, good morning. Carers of elderly persons are facing a difficult time, and there's often a lack of support for them. Mr. Ko Wing-man and Ms. Sophia Chan, during their tenure, I also voiced my opinion. There has been a lack of support, and now you are setting up a 24-hour hotline, but it's not going to help much. For example, a colleague of ours whose husband suffers from dementia, and she also suffers from hypertension and hyperlipidemia and other problems. She went to see the doctor. The doctor told her to stay in the hospital. She said, "I cannot stay in the hospital. My husband needs to be cared for." So she asked the doctor to sign a paper showing that she can be discharged from the hospital. So she needed help from people to take care of her husband so that she could be treated in the hospital. I've spoken twice in the Legislative Council. It's been some 6 to 7 years now, and I still don't see any improvement. Now the government is setting up the 24-hour hotline, and the government is asking social workers to pick up calls, but these aren't going to help much. The other support provided to carers aren't going to help much either. The government is offering CSSA, old age living allowance, and disability allowance. But still, we are facing a hard time. These resources aren't sufficient, and we don't have a lot of savings. A colleague of ours had to go see the doctor, and she had to bring her husband to see the doctor, despite that she was old. I hope the government can face up all these problems. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Liu from the Elderly Carer Concern Group. Good morning, Chairman. The two previous speakers, who are elderly people, told us about the support they needed. Undersecretary talked about website and hotline services, etc. But do elderly people know how to use these services? Do they know how to browse the internet or use these hotline services? An elderly person of 70 or 80 years old, can they actually use these internet services? For them, they need real actual services support. The elderly person just now spoke about her mother suffering from asthma. Could such elderly person actually use the hotline services to seek help for her mother? For these elderly people, they need actual service support. Unfortunately, based on the policy suggested by the government, we're only seeing a shallow type of support services such as website and hotline services, and these aren't going to actually help elderly people. For elderly persons, they need to take care of their own parents. They may not have time to go down to elderly centers to seek for help, and that's why we end up seeing a lot of family tragedies. Undersecretary mentioned about peer support. Yes, peer support is important. We see neighborhood support for children going to kindergarten, and they send people providing home care services for mothers of young children. The previous speaker mentioned about going to see the doctor in the middle of the night. They often don't dare go see the doctor because they don't want to leave the other elderly persons at home alone. So they don't even dare going to have a haircut or do other things, or even leave home because they need people to help take care of their elderly family members. I hope the government can roll out actual service support for carers of elderly persons or elderly carers. The subsidized community services, well, we often have to wait for 1 to 2 months to receive these services after being assessed. We need home-based respite services, for instance, to address their pressing needs. We also need, say, temporary respite services. I hope when the government formulates its carer policy, you can actually think about providing actual support instead of providing just hotline services or setting up websites. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Yun Shuk Yan from the Society for Community Organization. First of all, I'd like to thank the LegCo for setting up this subcommittee on promoting carer-centric policies. We see that the government or the LegCo is dedicated to implementing carer-centric policies in Hong Kong. This is important because we are all well aware of the issues we're facing, and we've been seeing a lot of tragedies in Hong Kong. However, we need policies to address these problems. In 2020, the government commissioned the Polytechnic University to conduct a study. We had high expectations on the study because the team spent a lot of time on the study and the report was released. And we thought right after the release of the report, the government would immediately roll out carer-centric policies and put in resources. There were just a few measures in the end, and we were quite disappointed. We need more measures, and it is a good thing to see the government implementing more policies. However, are they able to address the issues we're facing? We are talking about big problems. In the LegCo in May, members mentioned about setting up a database. We agree that we need a database for carers, and we need figures and statistics concerning what types of carers there are in Hong Kong and what type of problems they are facing. We need to know what kind of services we need to provide to them. Some speakers mentioned about the services not able to address people's needs, because we need to have the statistics to see what people or who are the people who need help. Well, the report from the Hong Kong Society or the Council of Society of Hong Kong was great. I think the measures aren't able to address the needs of carers, and that's why we're still seeing a lot of tragedies. I hope the government can let us know when we're going to see the carer-centric policies and when we'll see the database set up. Perhaps the government can first work with public rental housing estates to gather the data. Housing Authority has a lot of data available in relation to people living in public rental housing. And so we can first gather data on families of elderly doubletons. Next, we have Ms. So Mei Ying from the Hong Kong Neuromuscular Disease Association. Thank you, Chairman. I want to talk about the adversities faced by people with neuromuscular problems or diseases. It is usually a terminal disease or incurable disease, and these diseases prevent patients from speaking properly or even swallowing properly, and this is adding to the burden of carers of these patients. Today, there are a lot of carers who would like to attend this meeting to voice their opinions, but they cannot leave the care recipients alone. So I hope the government can provide more support to these carers so that they have time and space to voice their opinions. We have a number of recommendations. In Hong Kong, we still lack a definition for a rare disease. So the challenges faced by patients of such diseases cannot be well reflected. We need a long-term database to know what kind of needs these carers need. And we think we should have a panel on persons with disabilities so that we can gather support from various sectors to address the needs of people with disabilities. We also hope to have more resources and assistance from the government so that we can organize more events for carers. We also hope the government can subsidize universities to carry out study for self-help organizations to support patients with various rare diseases. Patients with rare diseases, they are facing urgent needs. Perhaps the government can make reference to training courses for foreign domestic helpers, so that these foreign domestic helpers are trained to provide care for patients with rare diseases. Domestic helpers sometimes have to take care of patients who need 24-hour intensive care, so perhaps more financial support can be given to foreign domestic helpers as well. Another member from our organization will speak, and we hope such platform is good for us to voice our comments and views. We have submitted our submission to the government. We hope that the government can give a written response to our submissions to let us know how you will follow up and what timetables you have. We have voiced our opinions, but if we don't see any follow-up actions from the government, then it would be meaningless for us to voice our views. Next, we have Mr. Wong from the Concern for Grassroots Livelihood Alliance Limited. Thank you, Chairman. We do need a platform like this to voice our opinions to the government. I won't be able to cover all the topics today, but I'd like to speak a little bit more about 24-hour respite services. We have provided a lot of frontline services to people in the community, and we see that residents in the community need various kinds of support. We have home-based childcare services, but residents in the district are often unable to use these services during working hours. The government may think that the home-based childcare services are not full. It's just that people aren't able to use the service. I want to share with you some experience. A resident who is a single mother during Typhoon number 8, she has to take a taxi with her 3 children to the A&E department of the hospital, and she was blamed for bringing all her children to the hospital. I believe a lot of residents in the district have experienced this. Another resident in the district has very poor health, and that resident could only make a phone call. The resident was living in a subdivided unit, and the resident's neighbors offered some food to him and his children. Some parents are under great pressure too, and there are lack of services during public holidays, and a parent was worried that he would hurt his child, and we received a call from him, and we immediately went to give support to him. However, this is not an official type of service. It's just that our colleagues happened to pick up the call during off hours, and we were able to provide help to that person. We see a number of tragedies, and it is usually the neighbors of the victims who were able to offer help. If they don't have the help from neighbors, they will really end up being victims of tragedies. I hope the government can review the 24-hour hotline services. You can also think about rolling out other types of 24-hour services, not just to carers of persons with disabilities, but to other types of carers too, to avoid tragedies from happening. The government often says that it attaches importance to these tragedies, so we want to see real actions from the government. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, from the Community Development Enhancement Fund, Mr. C.
Thank you, Chairman, members, and other carers. We are a social welfare organization supporting grassroots families and carers of children. On support and special needs of the grassroots families in remote areas, I have a few points to make. First, setting up a support team to support them, and second, to set up a team to support ethnic minority families. On the support team, there are currently many different types of social welfare organizations catering to the needs of different families, but the majority of these services are attached to the elderly centers, etc., for carers of the elderly and rehabilitation centers. So in the past, measures were not taken with a carer-centric perspective. Carers themselves are targets that require special services to support them. That is why we need to tailor-make services for the carers. This can ensure that they can be protected more comprehensively. That's my first point. Second, in our community, there are carers that are not covered under the current protection. Let's say carers of young children and carers of addicts. We hope that the carer service team can take care of these carers as well and provide ample support. Third, there are many voluntary organizations for carers, but that means that their resources are unstable. We can see that in the long term, our society is going to have more carers. That is why we need professional service teams to provide support to carers and the people that they care for. We have a few suggestions. First, we suggest setting up service team in 18 districts. This can take care of the needs within the district. If they are able to utilize the resources available in the districts, it will be able to help them establish an unofficial support network. On an organizational level and on a community level, this can help take care of the carers within the district because help is readily available within the district. And we believe that this will be greatly beneficial to carers. Also, we need to look at the case handling process for carers. And third, we expect that the service teams will be able to encourage or promote changes that are carer-friendly. And I'll be succinct. In Tung Chung and Hung Shui Kiu, there are also many ethnic minority families. Some of them may not be familiar with the resources available within the district, and they may not be proficient in the language. Very often, we formulate our policies based on the Chinese traditional way of family thinking, and the policies may not be able to reach these ethnic minority families. As for neighborhood carers, many ethnic minority families are not able to utilize these services. Please wrap up your speech. All right. I hope that officers from the Social Welfare Department and the relevant government department will have any response on the support to be provided by ethnic minority families. Well, the administration will give a consolidated reply after all speakers have spoken. Thank you. So next, Ms. So from the Concerned Group for the Benefits of Carers of Children in Mong Kok. Well, I am a single mother, so I'm speaking on behalf of single mothers in the Yau Chi Mong district. I would like to share our views. Many of our members are grassroots carers and single parents. Because of the nature of our caring duty, we cannot find employment. We have to rely on CSSA, and the allowance is only $405. No matter how many children we have, the allowance is still $405. This is a very small sum. We have to spend money on food and other supplies, and this is definitely not enough. I hope that in the future, CSSA and the single parent allowance can be separated. As children are growing, their expenses grow as well. I understand that carers are very smart. They are able to find cheap alternatives, but somehow money is still tight. Very often, single parents are not able to work because of various restrictions. If our income reaches a certain level, we have to return some of the money given to us by the government back to the government. As children grow up, some mothers may want to return to the job market, but since they did not work for such a long period of time, it is very difficult for them to reintegrate into the labor market. I hope that there can be another type of allowance to allow single parents to work part-time and to give them time to adapt to the work environment. I think that no one wants to be a CSSA recipient all their lives, and they would like to contribute to their children's upbringing and to give them a better living environment. So I hope that the administration can review the single parent allowance. Thank you. Next, Mr. Low from the Concerned Group for Carers of Children in the Yau Tsim Mon District. Well, I have some points to make regarding the format of the public hearing. I hope that in the future, for children carers, the public hearing should not be held on Saturdays, since children have different types of training sessions and lessons to attend. So I would suggest that in the future, public hearings should not be arranged on Saturday. Perhaps it would be better to arrange for the public hearing to be held from Monday to Friday when children are at school. Carers will be available to share their views with you. I'm going to talk about the retirement protection of carers of children. Currently, retirement protection is mainly based on MPF, which is linked with paid employment. However, for child caring duties and housekeeping, these are often taken for granted and they receive no pay for them. It is very difficult for these women to enter the employment market, be it full-time or part-time employment. Just then, another speaker talked about this as well. They may only be able to take a part-time job or freelance job, which makes it difficult for them to meet the needs of their daily living. And when there is emergency or when it comes to retirement, they may not be able to live with dignity. Based on a study published on the 13th of May this year, child carers were interviewed, and generally 11.8 hours are spent on child caring duties, including taking them to schools and etc. If we look at the minimum wage level at $40 per hour, then they should be paid $14,000 per month. And with all the duties that they have undertaken, they should be paid even more. Children are our future. However, carers have sacrificed their employment opportunities and other opportunities to take care of their children. what has our society done for them? And when they reach retirement age, will they be able to have retirement with dignity? So we have the following discussions. First, on retirement protection. We hope that you can consider the situation of children carers, and we hope that there can be a universal insurance in place for these carers. Thank you. Next, Ms. Choi from the group of carers of caring for children's carers. In the paper, there is no mention of child carers. We hope that the administration can set a definition of child carers. They have contributed a lot of their time and effort. How come the government is not considering the contributions that they have made? Second, we would like to propose the regularization of child carers allowance. Caring for children is the universal duty of our society, and support should be provided for child carers. We also need to recognize their status. Very often, they are taking care of their families full time, so that their family members will be able to work and study with peace of mind. They are supporting the workforce of our society. However, because of the full-time nature of their caring duties, they do not receive income, and that may create stress for them. Very often, they say that with no income, they feel that they are not respected within their families. Even when they want to see the doctor, they are afraid to ask for money to go to the doctor. We need to recognize the contributions that they have made. This is important for child carers. Some families with child carers may be receiving government allowances, such as the working family allowance, etc. However, these are family-centric and not carer-centric. They do not recognize the status of these carers. So we hope that there can be an allowance for carers. The government is going to roll out a 24-hour dedicated support hotline. However, child carers are not part of the target of this hotline. They face enormous pressure. Sometimes when they want to vent to others, others may say that, oh, it is what it is like to take care of children. It is difficult for them to share their burden with others. If there are social workers to man the hotline, it is very helpful for these carers, especially for carers with children of special educational needs. If 24-hour support can be provided through the hotline, it may help prevent the occurrence of tragedies in the future. We don't want to see any more tragedies. So I hope that child carers can be included as a service target for this carer hotline. Lastly, we hope that our suggestions can be considered by the administration. That is, to give a definition of carers, to set up child carers allowances, and to include child carers as a service target in the carer hotline. Thank you. Next, Mr. Wong Siu-chan. Well, today we are going to talk about how to take care of child carers. We can consider setting up a one-stop service center for child carers. They face challenges when it comes to their financial situation and other pressure, etc. Sometimes child carers have to work in addition to undertaking their childcare duty. So after they knock off work, they have to go home and take care of the children. When the child gets sick, they may have to apply for a day off to take their child to the doctor. However, they are worried that they may be fired because of that. So in essence, they are working 24 hours a day. child caring services or information on these services are rather fragmented. So when they are under pressure, do they still have time to look for these information online? And there may not be counseling services available in child care services. Very often we see from the news that carers are facing mental pressure. And so for a single case, they may be followed up on by 2 or 3 NGOs. And very often they are only providing short-term support. They have to bounce from different service providers. Is this beneficial to carers? So we would like to suggest to the government that once the definition of carers is set, can service centers be set up across different districts? Then this way, at least when they require services, they only need to go downstairs, or they can locate a service center within the vicinity. They will also be able to look for information that they need, let's say for mental support, etc. This can help relieve their burden. And these carer centers can also provide childcare services by improving the quality and increasing the quota. Then child carers will be able to juggle their job duties and child caring duties more effectively. And this can help relieve their burden. Child carers would like to take good care of their children, and we can, by doing so, increase Hong Kong's happiness index. Thank you. Next, from the concerned group of grassroots child carers, Ms. Tang Yok Kwan. Thank you, Chairman. Before I start, I would like for you to think about these questions. Well, who are child carers? Perhaps your answers is that those with children in their families. Then have you thought about what made them give up the rest of their life to dedicate their whole life to taking care of their families? Well, the answer is very obvious. It is love, sense of responsibility, and love for their families. According to a consultancy study, the main source of stress is the lack of income. The majority of these carers earn an income below the median income of Hong Kong. So 70% of them earn less than $10,000. They rely on their savings or allowances given by their family members or CSSA. However, this money is not enough for them to handle their needs. According to the CNSD report in 2019 to 2020, household expenditure per month is $15,000. Some of these families may be living in subdivided units, etc. So they will spend even more than that. So I would like to know, for families without income or with a very low income, how are they going to pay for these expenses, which is about $15,000 per month, and with insufficient income? The interviewers mentioned that they needed to reduce their expenditure, and they may even need to borrow from others. Their quality of life cannot be guaranteed this way. Just then, the Undersecretary for Labour and Welfare said that there is currently an allowance for carers of elderly persons. This may perhaps help alleviate the burden of these carers. However, is this allowance going to be spent on carers, or is it going to be spent on the people that the carers are caring for? Then can it fulfill the original intention? Is it possible to have financial support for carers themselves, so that they do not have to be worried about their financial situation and can relieve their burden. And I hope that we can take more preventive measures instead of managing risk. And very often, things cannot be solved by simply hiring a domestic helper. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Chen Hoi-Yen. Good morning, Chairman. We hope there will be more support for caring at home, and so and also we hope there will be some outside caring service, and then for the severely mentally and physically handicapped, carers for them should be included. There will be additional resources, and you need to recruit and retain more work, staff. And then now, foreign domestic helpers have a day off each week, so maybe there could be some sort of service voucher for carers to take a day off too. And then under the community care fund, there are various subsidies for different devices and equipment, such as wheelchairs and so on. You should also help the non-CSSA recipients. You need to relax the threshold for applying for carers allowance under the CCF. Now, for the designated support hotline, it has to be user-friendly. So when carers seek help, there shouldn't be any obstacles in their way. And there should be more respite places, and the eligibility should be relaxed. Thank you. Thank you. Next, Hong Kong Council of Social Service, Mr. Yip King Kang. Thank you. The HKCS has always been been concerned about the policy for carers. Now, last year there's a report on the consultancy study published, and various new measures are proposed. This will help carers who are in dire strait. Then the carer support measures mostly focus on the handling of high-risk carers, and there's no policy for other carers. So we believe there's need to come up with a long-term carer policies, and there should be regular services to give carer support, then so that we could implement carer-centric policies and measures. We have to give recognition to the contribution of carers, and we also need to take care of the different needs and consider their well-being. We believe there are several objectives. First, we need to build a community-friendly environment so carers are not affected. Secondly, there should be financial support so carers don't suffer financial hardship because they have to take care of others. And then there should be support services for carers. That's the third point. This is to make sure that those cared for could stay at home while support is given to carers. Finally, there should be sufficient legal protection for carers to provide care for others. We believe that the care policy should cover three important directions. One, the definition of carers. This will make sure that there is clear policy objective. This is to avoid wasting any resources. At the same time, this will form a basis for assessing policies. And then it will also promote recognition of carers and promote also international exchanges and collaboration. Secondly, we have a dedicated department to coordinate the measures. For example, something like a commissioner for rehabilitation. And then we'll have dedicated policies for supporting carers and to ensure policies can be carried out effectively. And then we could also set up an international network for sharing of experience. This will ensure that carers will receive effective and comprehensive support. Third point, there should be legal protection of the rights of carers. And then there should be training for carers on caring skill, on learning about their rights and so on. Hopefully then when carers provide care to others, they will also be given adequate protection. And this is to make sure that their well-being is well protected through legislative means. We have submitted written submission on our proposals. We hope the government and LegCo members will consider carefully the needs of carers, that we need to enhance the capacity, we need to reduce the stress, we also need to help them develop their own personal capacity. So we hope you will consider our views. Thank you. Next, Ms. Tam Chitwa. Morning. I'm the carer of a child with multiple handicaps. I have two suggestions to make. First, there should be a salary structure for carers. The government should be the employer, and so that for family members or who take care of the elderly or children, they should be given a monthly pay not lower than that for subvented organizations. Now, for actually the cost of each place is about $18,000 per month. That's the 22 figures. As for residential care homes for the elderly, the cost is about $18,000 to $25,000 for each worker there. So right now, the cost is actually absorbed by the household carers. So as we pay carers, we should also give all the legal protection now under the reference labor legislation. There should also be training for carers so they receive proper training on carer skill. Well, and then this and also this approach will be actually very reasonable. And then for some people think that it's only right for family members to take care of their elderly family members or children, but then actually if these people could be taken care of home, then the government will have to pay for the subvented places. But then if the government pays carers, the government needs only to pay the reference of disability allowance and other allowance with some means test. But then the government is not giving recognition to the contribution of carers. Now, for people who take care of others at home, the costs involved, we're talking about over $1 billion a year. And then if there is a salary structure for carers, actually it will help promote our economy too, because that is actually a cheaper way for us to take care of those in need. And then for all those who need certain equipment and medical aid, there should be subvention. Now, for persons with disabilities, of course, their need for equipment and so on should be assessed together by professionals and family members. And then we should consider the actual cost of this equipment instead of just paying a one-off allowance. Finally, I support the setting up of a commission on persons with disabilities. Next, the Association of Parents of the Severely Mentally Handicapped, Ms. Lai Pui Mei. Thank you. Today we're talking about carers policies, but whatever the policy we're talking about is about whether there are sufficient services to give support. So that's about long-term welfare planning and manpower planning, because for carers, the biggest assurance is that there are sufficient suitable services for them and they could live with dignity. That's why we also propose setting up the Commission on Persons with Disabilities, and then there could be coordination among different departments, and then for those living at home or in residential care homes, they'll be given suitable support. Now, often there are insufficient public resources. At the beginning of the year, the UN published a report on transition for persons with disabilities. Now, we have to abandon the assumption that women should be the carers. Now, for carers to be visible, the government needs to change its mindset. We have to make sure we have to support that carers are performing a public duty. That means it should no longer be considered a family duty, and family carers should have the right to make a choice. So therefore, the government needs to provide sufficient support for carers. On financial support, apart from relaxing the eligibility criteria for carers allowance, so more carers could get the allowance. We also suggest that there should be additional financial report from non-CSSA household carers. For example, subsidizing the hiring of foreign domestic helpers, and it will help to relieve the stress of carers. And also for persons with disabilities staying with family, they should be allowed to apply for CSSA independently, because it will reduce disputes among family members. Now, under the current system, only persons with disabilities not living in the same household could apply separately for CSSA. That means you're forcing families to live apart. And then, for the residential care home places for the persons with disabilities, there's a long waiting time. So this is inconsistent policy. And we need to improve the allowance system. That we should relax the eligibility criteria. Also, after deducting basic expenditure, you should use the net income for calculation, so that and then there should be allowance for buying rehabilitation equipment and medical consumables. Now, respite services are very important, but such services should be district-based, based on the population of persons with disabilities. So you could provide a day and residential respite places. There should also be more places for after-school care programs for the PWDs. Thank you. Next, the carers. Care for Carers platform. Yes, we have various organizations joining us. We take care. We're very concerned about the rights of carers. We need to improve their treatment. You've read the news about different tragedies in the past few years, and each of these tragedies reminds us that we need to take care of the needs of carers, and for every life lost, it's testimony to the seriously insufficient services. So we need to do two things. First, we need to give a proper definition of carers, and there has to be a carer-centric policy to prevent such tragedies. So on refine of carers definition, we need to have an assessment tool for carers. So if we want to formulate a policies for carers, of course, we need to have a proper definition. But right now, the definition has a narrow scope. For example, the CCF living allowance for carers, it only covers carers for elderly and PWDs. But then what about child carers and other carers? They do not benefit from the living allowance. So the government should take a step further and first come up with a proper definition of carers before formulating policies. Now, apart from grouping the different types of carers based on those they care for, the carers also have their own needs. We need to have a carer-centric assessment tool for us to identify high-risk carers, and this assessment tool should cover, for example, the social burden of the carer or the carers in own situation, such as their age, their mental health status, and health status. And of course, welfare organizations are able to identify their issues, and so that we could provide suitable support to them. Now, after we have this assessment tool, and then we could consider a long-term carer-centric policy. We could provide more resources and more collaboration opportunities for groups giving support to carers. For example, for our members, their experience is when carers need to look for services, they have to go through centers, carer-centric centers to look for resources, or they have to go for integrated family service center to seek help. But then carers say that they have to overcome many obstacles before they could get any service, any support service. So for carer-centric policies, we have to consider the individuals, social level, and so on. We need to give them caring skills, training, and help them with life planning. There should be a dedicated center for carers, and there should be community-friendly facilities. And on the policy level, we need to provide a comprehensive support policy for carers. And also the government has been talking about family-friendly policies for a long time. How do we turn these policies into a policy to give some protection to carers? We are very much concerned about that. Finally, for many of the carers here or those who are not here, I'm sure they have been looking forward to this public hearing for a long time. So we hope the government will continue to have communication with the community and listen to the needs of carers. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lee Chi-yong. Thank you. I'm a former carer. My daughter was severely physically handicapped 4 years ago. She passed away, or 5 years ago. Yes, my daughter's no longer here, but my experience as a carer is still vivid in my memory. So I hope before I would like to spend 10 seconds to pay tribute to those who suffer tragedies because there's not a proper policy for carers. Now, no one will know when your family member will become a person with disabilities. So it's important that we have a proper policy for carers and PWDs. Now, as carers, we encounter different problems, and then our stress builds up. We feel helpless, we feel anxious, and even feel desperate. And in the end, because we can no longer take the stress, we see tragedies. Now, I'm a parent taking care of my daughter. I know what it's like. I'm still suffering from my experience. Now that we should, the government's always stressed that there is now a rehabilitation commission but yesterday I visited the website. In the last 4 years, they only held 9 meetings. They just spent 19 hours to deal with all disability issues. Is it really an effective and organization that could take care of issues? I don't think so. And then we see tragedies year after year with carers, and we know already the structure is not adequate to come up with concrete policies. Now, every time there's a tragedy, the government says it feels sad and is going to follow up. Now, many lives have been sacrificed. We've seen many family tragedies. Still, it's not enough to push the government to set up a higher level commission to take care of such issues. So life's cheap or precious, really. So what I want to say is, first of all, I hope there will be a commission on persons with disabilities as soon as possible, and so all stakeholders could be invited to come to help formulate policies in supporting PWDs and their carers. And then there should be self-help groups set up. They should be involved in policy formulation, and they could give their views. And thirdly, you should improve the case manager mode. Now, there should be a central case manager, and fourthly, there should be the 24 support hotline should be manned by individuals, so there could be direct dialogue, because those who seek help may feel anxious and helpless. Now, finally, for my daughter, now what we hope for is actually her last wish. And I want to say this to officials. Now, carers are not just asking for the government to tell us there is a way ahead, but rather to tell us what this path is like. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Tam from a carer rights concern group. Good morning, everyone. I'm a representative from a carer rights concern group. Carers from grassroots families, they all hope that the next generation can live happily and no need to worry about their daily lives and not to worry about not able to take care of their children. Basic support includes public housing, CSSA, and working family allowances, etc. We believe that a lot of families have benefited from these schemes. However, even with CSSA and all these allowances, how much help are they able to offer? Some are of the view that they may be able to work hard and get all these allowances, and they will be able to get by with their lives. However, it's unlawful for them to leave their children alone at home. And also, if they go out and work, who are going to bring their children to see the doctor when their children get sick, and who are going to teach them how to do their homework, who are going to cook for their children? If parents go to work, then children will only be left with their iPhones or iPads at home. There will be the minimum working hours requirement, and if parents do not work for enough number of hours, they won't be able to apply for the relevant allowances. So most of the childcare givers, they have to rely on CSSA, especially parents of children aged or single parents who are aged 16 years or under. Their children often feel bad or inferior when they compare themselves with their classmates. So very often children or parents of these children, they have to give up their work. Also, these parents do not have enough saving, and single parents often cannot be self-reliant, or they are labeled to be non-self-reliant, and they don't dare tell others that they are CSSA recipients, and very often they aren't able to tell others that they are CSSA recipients. So applicants of these living allowances, they should be eligible for allowances even though they are getting other types of subsidies. Next, we have Ms. from the Hong Kong Federation of Women's Centres. Good morning. Our organization promotes gender equality. Around the world, we've been talking about gender equality and that there are female government officials working in the senior level. Well, is it true that we have achieved complete gender equality? We don't agree. Very often, under traditional concept, females are often the caregivers in the family. According to an organization in Sweden, they said that common care support is an important element for us to promote gender equality, and that's what the organization advocated in 1978. And we need to make sure that women can go out and work. And in Hong Kong, we are seeing gender inequality. For instance, for childcare services and respite services, we're lacking of these support. So it's hard for women to go out and work. And for paternity leave, very often men only get 5 days of such leave, and this is deterring men from taking care of their children. A lot of caregivers, they face a lot of pressure and difficulties. They have no choice. They cannot achieve self-development. They want to hunt for jobs, but it's difficult for them to do so. For instance, if they go out and work, no one will take care of their family members or elderly family members. Very often, carers have to resign or quit their jobs in order to take care of their elderly family members. Some employers may say that they roll out family-friendly measures, but these are all just slogans, and they only encourage their staff members to take care of their families, but there aren't actual support given to enterprises. We hope that the government can take the lead to put in more resources to carers, so that carers can be more confident and be more skillful to go out and work. And this will give carers more time to think about their life planning. Will employers be able to roll out some form of internship programs to carers, so that carers, while they have to take care of their family members, they can have the room and space to go out and work and have the confidence to do so? We also think that the government needs to ensure that there is a friendly work environment for carers. For instance, in Australia or in Singapore and so on, there are flexible work policies in these countries. We hope that the government can roll out similar policies so that there can be flexible work arrangement for carers who can balance work as well as taking care of their family members. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Yao from the Care Neighborhood Network, the all-in-one carer support platform. Good morning, everyone. This Care Neighborhood Network is a cross-sectoral platform established by people in the Tai Po district. This platform cares about definition of carers. Under the current definition provided by the government, carers of elderly persons and carers of persons with disabilities are defined as carers. But we think that there should be a broad definition for carers, including carers of those who cannot take care of themselves. Also, child carers, carers of SEN patients, as well as carers of persons with chronic illnesses. All these carers should be able to obtain support from the government. This year, the government rolled out self-employed carers policies. For instance, there will be a dedicated hotline for carers, and also subsidies or amount of subsidies are provided or increased for carers, but these are not enough. For instance, for the hotline service, we hope that it can prevent tragedies from happening and that someone can listen to carers who feel helpless. On carer subsidy, there are over 1 million carers in Hong Kong, but currently there are only 10,000 places for these schemes, and every month eligible applicants only get about 3,000 Hong Kong dollars, and this is insufficient. So we can well imagine that there will continue to be tragedies involving carers. As we are offering frontline support to carers, we often hear carers saying that they feel hopeless and they are in the verge of breaking down. We also hear a lot of experiences shared by carers today. This is common for carers. Well, carers often have to rely on their own to prevent tragedies from happening. However, if the government is willing to dedicate or devote more resources to help carers, we'll be able to prevent tragedies from happening. For instance, we think that the government should implement various types of support for different carers at the community level. For instance, daycare respite services, temporary respite services, as well as residential respite services have to be enhanced. The government has to put in resources to roll out long-term support for carers. This is not just to prevent tragedies from happening. This is to provide long-term support for carers. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Wong from ELCHK Taiwo Integrated Youth Service Center. Thank you, Chairman. A lot of carers would like to attend the meeting or public hearing today. However, this is not a convenient time for a lot of the carers. In case the Legislative Council is thinking of holding another public hearing, you may consider holding it in the morning during weekdays. The government reported in its opening remarks various policies for carers. We understand the government is working on these policies. However, we are still not getting the support we need. We hope that carers of SEN people can be included in the definition of carers provided by the government so that they can be treated the same as carers of elderly persons and of persons with disabilities, so that the government can see the needs of these carers as well. Well, summer break is coming. I believe that members will be on vacation or on leave. However, for carers, this is the busiest time for them. They won't be able to rest because they have to provide 24/7 care for their care recipients, especially children who need intensive care. With other unfavorable factors, for instance, if the carer is a low-income person or a single parent, or if the carer is someone who is taking care of elderly persons or persons with disabilities, they often feel helpless and lonely. The government may think that these carers can use the home-based care services or daycare services. However, when we reach out to these carers, they often tell us that they don't dare using these services. That's because if you want to take part in these services, you have to know whether the volunteers providing the care for your children are actually capable of taking care of children with special educational needs. Also, these services are paid services, and you have to make an appointment to use these services. And they don't provide emergency services. I've talked to an SEN child, and the child is from a single-parent family, and the child lives with an elderly person. And one day in the middle of the night, the elderly person has to go to the hospital, and the parent of this child felt very helpless because the mother didn't know whether she should bring the SEN child to the hospital with her. And if she did so, would her child be able to attend school the next day? So what I want to say is that the government can consider reviewing its respite services or care services to support carers of SEN children. For those who have once provided care to care recipients, after the carers have finished their mission, would they be able to share their personal experiences with other carers? Thank you. I would like to respond to the arrangement of this public hearing. We picked a Saturday to hold this public hearing because there are other LegCo meetings during weekdays. If you go to our website, you will see that we have meetings every day from Monday to Friday. So we will talk to the Secretariat to see how we can accommodate those who need to go to work during weekends, to see how they can attend public hearings. I believe you can also call up our Secretariat and voice your opinions. we're happy to listen to you. And also during summer break, we members have to work as well. So please be rest assured, this subcommittee under the panel on welfare services will be paying a visit to the Greater Bay Area to see what kind of residential care home services they provide there. Next, we have Ms. Tai from a group in Taipo. Good morning. We care about different types of carers. We think that we can give each other mutual support and not to compete for resources. And also, carers can be carers of elderly persons, they can be carers of children, as well as carers of SEN patients or carers of rehabilitated patients or recovered patients. Carers may have multiple identities, so we are happy that apart from hearing from carers of elderly persons and persons with disabilities, we also heard from single parents and we also heard from carers of people with mental illnesses. Different types of carers have or need the same type of needs in terms of healthcare needs and other medical needs. And these needs are inadequate in Hong Kong, or this relevant support is inadequate in Hong Kong. As carers of elderly persons, we think that carers should cover carers of SEN patients, carers of children, carers of special diseases, and single parent carers. Speakers have mentioned about the various support services we need. Our common wish is that the government can treat us all as humans. We do not want tragedies to happen. We do not want to reveal what happened to our families to others. We do not want mercy from the government. We do not want to beg for resources and subsidies from the government. We hope that the government can treat carers as humans and that carers can focus on their personal development. Carers have their own needs. Carers deserve their own resources and support. We see that the government has opened up some working groups, and the government is also holding this public hearing today, and that the government is working on policies for carers. We hope that the government can reflect your attachment to your care for carers in your policies and measures. Next, we have Ms. Chak from the Hip Hong Parents Association. We have some 4,000 members in our association, and I am speaking on behalf of our 4,000 members, including carers and children in needs. A lot of times people think that parents are responsible for taking care of their children. I am a carer myself. My daughter is 7 years old and she is severely mentally disabled, and there are 11 specialty departments, and my daughter goes to see doctors from all these departments. If you are a carer of a severely disabled person, you're not allowed or eligible for other types of allowances. I'm not poor enough, so I cannot apply for other types of allowances. My daughter has to go to attend follow-up consultations all the time. In order to take care of her, I have to give up on my high-income job. I have some savings. However, I see that the expenditure to take care of my daughter is increasing. I'm worried that before I get old, I'll use up all my savings. So I need to rely on the support from the government. There are medical expenditure and all types of other expenses to take care of my daughter. I hope that the government can extend the medical voucher scheme to cover those with chronic illnesses or those suffering from rare diseases, so that they can, say, buy wheelchairs or specially designed chairs or special breathing machines or equipment. And these are all medical expenses or long-term expenditure for us. For instance, my daughter's wheelchair, it is of basic design and it costed $13,000. For other children, they may need wheelchair costing $20,000 or above. If the medical vouchers provided by the government can cover the cost of these equipment, it will help alleviate the burden of carers. We also suggest the government set up case managers to follow up on complicated cases, to look for more adequate support for carers. I'm not talking about social workers of certain organizations when I suggest the establishment of the post of case managers. When my daughter was born, I already knew that she was suffering from very rare diseases. As to what kind of information was available, how to get into the waiting list for rehabilitation services, I relied on myself, and I had to go to see psychiatrists at that time. I believe that a lot of carers are also under huge pressure and had to take medication. It was fortunate that my husband was fine at that time, but if there was a case manager who could follow up on our case and that I wouldn't have to explore all these by myself, I'm sure I would be better off, and this will also help alleviate the burden of other carers. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and carers. I'm here to represent ethnically diverse people, whom we also know the disadvantaged group of people, okay? They have been living in Hong Kong for many years or many ages. I am here to represent their needs and concern. So we all knew that the Social Welfare Department has established a project which is called Neighborhood Sport Child Care Project. So my concern and needs, it's relevant to the Neighborhood Sport Child Care Project. My first question is to represent that please make a good implementation and monitor when they have these projects, because there are several reasons that the most of the disadvantaged group of people, especially from South Asian countries who have been living in Hong Kong, they are very far way behind to reach that resources. Because the most of the ethnically diverse people do not know much about it. Most of the leaflets or the printing materials are printing in the Chinese language. So even though it's written in English, most of the minorities families, maybe they have a difficulties to read it out. And especially the promotion is one of the major concern about it, because every resources are implemented in Chinese mostly. So why don't they reach out publicly to those disadvantaged group of the people with different district to approach them out? Because why I am representing this issue, because in the early of the June, there was a very critical accident happen. 3 children were lost. So this is the one of the major issue that I'm concerning. Somehow this resources is very useful. So why don't we promote it to the minorities groups who are living in Hong Kong? Because I have seen that the minorities families, they are bigger in size. Even though there is a one breadwinner, maybe the father is out for work, and it's hard for the mother to take care of maybe 2 or 3 children. Even I heard in here, one of the Chinese family, she mentioned 1 or 2 children is very hard to take care. So you assume that there is 3 or more children taking care of one mother. So it could be a much more burden. My second question is, most of the ethnically diverse people hesitate to hand their children to neighborhood sport child care project, because of the several reasons. It could be because most of the carers in that project, they're from the local background. So most of the ethnically people, they think that they do not understand about their language or some kind of the other circumstances where to raise about their children more betterly. So I recommend that maybe we can provide more resources, especially like the language, interpretation, or the opportunities for the minorities group to work under that project so they can serve them more betterly. That's all. Thank you very much.
好，下一位係明愛長者聯會陳。
Next, Mr. Chen from Carer-centric Federation of Senior Citizens. Good morning. I'm from Carer-centric Federation of Senior Citizens. Today I'm going to give our views regarding carer policies. We have written to the Social Welfare Department in April to express our support. Today, the 24th of June, the administration is holding a meeting to collect views regarding carer-centric policies. We, the Carer-centric Federation of Senior Citizens, is concerned about the carer policies, and we have also collected views on these policies. They are summarized below. First, we recommend that the carer hotline can be received or can be answered by professionals within 10 minutes. They should be manned by social workers with 3 years experience or more. They can provide emotional support and service matching, etc. And within 1 week of the referral, the social worker should call to follow up the arrangement of these services. The government should set service pledges, let's say indicator on the number of days taken to give a reply, successful referral, etc. The hotline can provide the necessary health information and support the carers needed, provided by nurses, therapists, and other professionals. For example, medical or consultation on medicine and drugs for elderly people with dementia, etc. And if necessary, they can help the carers to call the police. Second, to arrange residential respite spaces in urban areas. Currently, in remote areas, the utilization rate for these residential respite spaces is low, while the demand far outweighs supply in urban areas. Currently, there is no pragmatic support, such as transportation arrangements and manpower, etc. This make it very difficult for carers to utilize these services. So we suggest that the government can arrange transportation for these locations, and the inquiry system should also be updated in a timely manner so the carers will be able to apply for services successfully as quickly as possible. Third, we suggest stepping up community care services. Currently, there is not enough home care service. There are not enough home care services resources, and we recommend establishing in each district home care service centers, so that using a district-based approach, we can mobilize the help of different stakeholders within the community. Thank you. Next, Mr. Ng Kin Man from Carer EPS platform. Good morning, Chairman, everyone. Today, I'm speaking as the second convener of the Carer EPS platform on behalf of the 10 organizations on our platform to express our views on the carer-centric policies. Our platform was established in 2010. We served, our 10 organizations served some 2.2 million users. As at May this year, over 3,000 carers have registered as our member. We have issued each of them with a carer cards. This can recognize their status as carers and allow them to get certain discounts and other benefits in the community. There are 7 major types of carers. including elderly carers and carers for persons with disability and SEN children. In May, we have organized a mini expo. Some 2,000 people showed up. We saw that different organizations have different types of services for carers. We have the following 3 suggestions. First, we believe that cross-sectoral cooperation has to be promoted to enhance the synergy effect. Currently, in the various government departments responsible for carers policy, the duties are very scattered. Let's say for rehab services and for elderly care services, etc. Other speakers have talked about this as well. There are carers with multiple needs. Let's say for a mother, she could be taking care of a SEN child, and she may be taking care of elderly members of the family as well. We can see that existing resources in the community can be consolidated through our platform. We hope that the government can allocate more resources to support platforms that are similar to our nature. This can encourage more cross-sectoral cooperation. This can increase the accessibility of information and achieve synergy effect. Second, on community network. We want to promote the use of alternate carers and peer support. We can utilize the approach of small-scale multiple function. This can assist government's policies in identifying high-risk carers. And preventive measures can be taken in the community through our platforms. We are already doing this on a trial basis. And lastly, we hope that the quota of the allowance, the 10,000 quota, can be used by carers on their daily living and on pursuing their personal development so that they can have time of their own. Please refer to our written submissions for more. Thank you. Next, Ms. Yim Wei-yin from the Liberal Party Volunteer Group. Thank you, Chair. I'm the chairperson of the volunteer group of the Liberal Party. Other than visiting elderly persons, I'm also a carer for elderly people. My father suffered from terminal cancer and my mother suffered from a stroke, and she could not take care of herself anymore. Fortunately, I have 2 older brothers to share carer duties, and we do not face any financial pressure. We do have a helper to help take care of our mother. However, this has still caused a lot of burden on us. Every day after work, we rushed home to look after my mother. And at night, when we hear voices, then I become very nervous, and we can no longer go on trips. We have to all go to stay at my older brother's home. And my mother has to constantly go to the hospital. This has caused enormous pressure. So for people who face financial burden, I really cannot imagine how much stress they are under. Well, in 2022, the government engaged in university to conduct a consultancy study to see the challenges faced by elderly carers. The chief executive has mentioned in the 2022 policy address that there will be more policies to support carers. I believe that the government is taking the right direction. However, in its implementation, there may be some challenges. Firstly, it is very difficult to identify those who need help, because these people very often do not know where to turn to look for resources to help them. So it is very important to reach out to them. As a carer myself, I was not aware of any help available from the government, and there should be coordination efforts. Let's say during COVID, there was a thematic website. I consider myself digitally literate. However, it was very difficult for me to look for information that I needed. I hope that in the future, the website can be designed in a user-friendly way. Beta tests should be conducted before it is launched. And help should be made readily available. There are 226,000 carers or people in need of care. However, there are only a few hundred residential places. Demand far outweighs supply. So I think that we need to think about how to utilize technology or the internet, and perhaps workers will have to be imported, and a platform can be established to help match these helpers with the persons in need. And we can also enlist experienced carers to share their experience, and when they no longer have caring duties, they can re-enter the employment market. Some people may need to leave the labor market because of issues faced by their families. This is a lose-lose situation. Hong Kong is facing a serious manpower shortage. So we need to assist these carers in adopting flexible measures to tackle issues at home while balancing their job duties. This can also help their financial, emotional, and social needs. Thank you. Next, Ms. Chong from Platform for Carers of Persons with Disabilities. Thank you, Chairman. I represent the Platform for Carers of Persons with Disabilities. We are a mutual help group of carers of persons with disabilities. I take care of a child of my own with autism. Regarding the establishment of this subcommittee to follow up carer-centric policies, we welcome this measure. We hope that the measures can be implemented effectively. In 2020, a mother murdered her own child. It was a shocking tragedy. These people in need face enormous pressure, and yet they are not identified. That is why we need to clearly define the term carers. The Polytechnic University has, in the consultancy study on needs and support required of the carers of elderly persons and of persons with disabilities in Hong Kong, set out the definition of carers. However, in last year's policy address, the definition of carer is still unclear. This has impeded the implementation of social welfare policies. Carers face emotional pressures constantly, and this can lead to tragedies. That is why a clear definition should be set out. And we are very much concerned about the emotional support provided by carers. In Hong Kong, across 18 districts, there are service centers for carers set up by the SWD. And they have provided case support and recreational facilities for these carers. However, these organizations are only providing services for carers of persons with specific disabilities. This made carers of other services. This made carers of persons with other disabilities unable to receive such services. We believe that these resource centers should not be focused on providing recreational facilities or activities. They should instead provide emotional support and peer support for these carers, And we are also very much concerned about the establishment of the 24-hour hotline. Assessment should be provided to see what types of support carers need. And the hotline should be used as a stepping stone to connect users with respite services. Also, unnecessary waiting and communication time should be reduced. In case of emergency, carers should be able to get in touch in a live chat so that follow-up actions can be taken as promptly as possible. Thank you.
軍護
Next, Salvation Army, the Carer Association, Ms. Tong Sui-ping. Mr. Chairman, members and fellow carer groups, good morning. Now, we want to ask for free policies for carers. First, relaxing the eligibility criteria for the living allowance for carers for the elderly. And secondly, strengthening the relevant services and free is carer-friendly workplace. Now, usually for the elderly, they will always think for long-term care services. And for those who are not eligible or who don't need such services, they actually cases of the elderly caring for the elderly or the disabled caring for the disabled. So we propose that the eligibility criteria for living allowance should be delinked from the waiting list criteria. So there is no need to make a choice between waitlisting for long-term service and applying for the allowance. And also, there should be diversified respite services. For example, emergency services, regular services, or nighttime respite services, or relief respite services. So then the application procedure should be such that to allow more carers to use the services. And thirdly, now, we've always asked for suitable support for those in working age who are carers as well, so they could work as well. And the government should take the lead, and there should be flexible working hours and relief arrangement for carers and so on. So businesses want to be able to continue to develop. So if you could give proper support to carers, then of course that will help the reputation of businesses, and actually there are costs involved when staff can be retained, so the support for carers would help to reduce such costs. Carers are important social resource, and their contributions should be recognized. We hope that you will regularly review carers policies in response to changing needs. You need to give effective support to carers, and you should promote the home care policy. If you wish, we could provide more information for your consideration. Thank you. Thank you. Now, it's already 11, so we had already spent 2 hours in the meeting. Can I propose a break of 5 minutes? There are still another dozen or so speakers, so perhaps we can take a 5-minute break, and then we can come back to listen to the other views. Thank you.